Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Boston broadcaster shamelessly accuses Erik Spoelstra of ordering Miami to purposely injure Celtics. Former Celtics player turned broadcaster Brian Scala Brine threw around some pretty dangerous accusations after Boston's Game 1 win over Miami in the first round of the NBA playoffs. He shamelessly insisted that head coach Erik Spoelstra ordered his players to injure their opponents after being blown out in the opening matchup. The insinuation came after a very physical play under the basket with the C's up by 16 late in the fourth quarter. As superstar Jason Tatum leapt up to rebound a missed shot, Miami's Caleb Martin undercut him, causing him to fall hard on the floor. It looked bad, and some would go as far as to call it unnecessary, as it didn't appear Martin was making a direct play at the basketball. But intentional? Brian Scala Brine says so. Here's what he had to say in the post-game. "I'm not trying to start nothing here," Scala Brine said before indeed starting something. Erik Spoelstra called a timeout with 1:30 left, down 16. 30 seconds later, that play happens. Why is he calling a timeout, and then why is that play happening 30 seconds later? We call that code red. Like in A Few Good Men. I'm just saying. Why would you see that play? I didn't like that. Brian Scala Brine, who played NBA ball for a decade, believes the foul was not only intentional, but it was a direct order from the Heat bench. Many argued against that opinion, providing some pretty strong circumstantial evidence to disprove the allegation. Firstly, that timeout Scala Brine alluded to was, in fact, not a timeout at all. Rather, it was a coach's challenge from the Miami staff, who was questioning a foul call against its defense. This came after the Heat pulled to within 14 points. Now, some would argue that the game was out of reach, but it's worth noting that Miami was attempting to make one final push after starting the fourth quarter down by 32. Secondly, replays showed that Caleb Martin was potentially pushed by a Celtics player, causing his momentum to carry him into Jason Tatum just as he left his feet. He appeared on the Dan Le Batard show Monday to talk about the accusation against Erik Spoelstra. In doing so, he attempted to peddle the narrative to listeners while looking extremely foolish as he continuously moved the goalposts. Scala Brine started by saying the Heat planted a seed before the start of the series, then doubled down on his implication that Erik Spoelstra ordered the takeout. After receiving some pushback from hosts, he bizarrely brought Draymond Green into the equation in an attempt to compare Caleb Martin to the most controversial player in the NBA. And even then, that goalpost moved from the coach demanding the code red to a player doing something extracurricular on his own. The entire conversation made Brian Scala Brine sound very silly, but it's probably too late for him to change tune now. NBA has made a decision on Caleb Martin's controversial foul. The Boston Celtics got themselves a relatively easy win in their 2024 playoff opener on Sunday, but there was a moment of controversy. Late in the game, Miami Heat wing Caleb Martin bumped Celtics star Jason Tatum hard while the two were going after a rebound, and Tatum took a hard spill as a result. The Celtics and their fans cried foul, and some even accused Martin and the Heat of intentionally trying to injure Tatum. But on Monday, the NBA decided not to upgrade Martin's foul to a flagrant, and he will not be suspended, per NBA Central. It looks like the league got this one right. Martin simply bumped Tatum hard, and it was likely the way Tatum fell that angered Celtics fans. Boston won this game, 114-94, even though Tatum shot just 7 of 18, but they clearly have an advantage in this series because Jimmy Butler, Miami's best player, is out with an MCL injury. Last year, Miami overcame the Celtics in 7 games, winning Game 7 by a wide margin in Boston despite blowing a 3-0 lead to set up that 7th game. The year before that, the two teams also played to a Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals, but the Celtics were able to outlast Butler's squad. If Butler were healthy this time around, Miami would likely have at least an outside chance because of their history of playoff success, particularly against the men in green. Instead, it looks inevitable that the Celtics will win this series without too much trouble and move on to face the winner of the Milwaukee Bucks-Indiana Pacers matchup. NBA rumors: Jimmy Butler expected to miss Celtics-Heat series. The Boston Celtics caught a break to begin their first-round playoff series with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler, who didn't play in Sunday afternoon's Game 1 Celtics win, remains watching from the sidelines after Miami's play-in tournament win over the Sixers. Butler helped keep the Heat from falling out of securing a first-round spot, scoring 19 points and playing 40 minutes after suffering an MCL sprain in the first quarter. But the latest surrounding Butler's injury suggests the 34-year-old won't return in time to compete against the Celtics in a rematch of last season's Eastern Conference Finals. It's crazy to hear Jimmy Butler played 3 quarters with what I'm hearing now was a severe MCL sprain. He is not going to be back in this series, The Athletic's Shams Charania reported Monday on FanDuel's Run It Back. This is a rehab that's gonna go at least 1 month, could be 2 months of rehab. This is something Jimmy Butler's gonna have to work on. Butler led the Heat in points, 20.8, assists, 5, and steals, while also shooting 49.9% from the field and 41.4% from 3 in 60 games. It didn't take too long for Butler's absence to make itself known throughout Game 1 against the Celtics. Miami allowed Boston to follow the series opening tip-off with a 14-0 run. The Celtics tied a franchise playoff record by knocking down 22 three-pointers en route to a 114-94 victory, which posed various concerns, Butler's absence aside, heading into Game 2. Miami shrank in search for interior scoring, totaling just 24 points inside the paint while allowing 44 to the Celtics. Heat head coach Erik Spoelstra was even forced to call an emergency timeout 2 minutes into the game. "We have to do things that get our best players going, and also other guys stepping up and making plays to keep them honest," Spoelstra told reporters after Game 1, per team-provided video. The Heat received their most notable contribution from reserve unit guard DeLon Wright, who delivered 17 points and hit a career-best 5 threes, notching a higher scoring total than 4 of Miami's starters. That performance ultimately went to waste. "They gonna look at us and be like, we can't win without Jimmy," Miami's Bam Adebayo explained, per team-provided video. "You look at records because we were in the play-in. Then you look at Boston's record, any case may be, but at the end of the day you gotta play the game. You gotta go out there and compete." Boston went 3-0 against Miami in the regular season. And you, fan, what do you think of the situation of Jimmy Butler? Leave your opinion in the comments.